Maya Emile rewrote my wedding vows to make me promise loyalty to her. I read my real vows instead, and she had a public meltdown at the reception. I don't know if this makes me the asshole, but I need to get this off my chest. My mother-in-law rewrote my wedding vows. Not suggested edits. Not helpful input. She literally rewrote them behind my back, slipped them to the officiant 30 minutes before the ceremony, and expected me to read them without checking. The kicker? They were full of promises about always honoring her as the foundation of my marriage. I'd always known my MIL had what you'd call a strong personality. That's what everyone said. Strong personality. Opinionated. Passionate about family. All the polite ways people describe someone who steamrolls over every boundary in sight. But I figured once we got married, things would settle down. I was wrong. From the second my fiancé, now husband, and I got engaged, she inserted herself into every single decision. And I mean every single one. The venue? She had opinions. The flowers? She knew better. The guest list? She needed final approval because family dynamics are delicate. At first, I tried to be patient. This was her only son getting married. I understood she'd have feelings about it. But as the wedding got closer, her behavior shifted from involved to invasive. The first red flag came about 3 months before the wedding. We were at her house for Sunday dinner, and she brought up the ceremony. Specifically, the vows. My fiancé and I had decided early on that we wanted to write our own. Something personal. Something that felt like us. When I mentioned this, Emile's face lit up in a way that made my stomach drop. "Oh, how wonderful," she said, gripping my hand across the table. "I'll help you write them. I know exactly what a wife should promise." I laughed it off, told her we wanted to surprise each other, that it was more meaningful if we did it alone. She smiled, but her eyes stayed cold. "Of course, sweetheart. I just want to make sure they're appropriate, sentimental enough. You know how important family is." That word, family. She wielded it like a weapon. Over the next few weeks, she kept circling back to the vows. Every phone call, every visit, she'd find a way to bring them up. "Have you finished writing them yet? Are you sure you don't want me to look them over? I just think it would be a nice touch if you acknowledged the family you're joining." I kept deflecting, kept my answers vague, but she wouldn't let it go. Then came the second red flag, about 2 weeks before the wedding. We were having brunch, me, my fiancé, Emile, and FIL. Emile brought up the vows again, but this time her tone was different. More insistent. "I really think," she said, stirring her mimosa slowly, "that it would be a beautiful tribute if you included me in your vows. After all, you're not just marrying him. You're joining our family. It would mean so much to me if you acknowledged that."
Især det her.
Acknowledged how? "Just a line or two," she said, smiling sweetly. "Something about respecting the woman who raised him. About valuing the foundation I've built for him. Nothing dramatic. Just an acknowledgement." My fiancé cleared his throat. "Mom, the vows are between me and her." She waved him off. "Oh, don't be silly. A wedding isn't just about two people. It's about families coming together. If she really loved you, she'd want to honor that." If she really loved you. I felt my jaw tighten, but I forced a smile and changed the subject. Later in the car, my fiancé apologized. He said his mom had always been intense, but that she meant well. I wanted to believe him. The Real warning came the night before the wedding. I was in the bridal suite with my bridesmaids, running through last-minute details. We were laughing, drinking wine, trying on our shoes one more time. It should have been perfect. Then my maid of honor pulled me aside. "Hey," she said quietly. "I need to tell you something weird." My stomach dropped. "What?" "Earlier today, I was walking past the chapel, and I heard your Mile talking to the officiant.
I don't know how to say this.
She was whispering something about a last-minute change to the vows. Something about family unity." I felt cold all over. What did she say exactly? I couldn't hear all of it, but she kept saying it was important. That you'd agreed to it. That it was a surprise for your fiancé. I hadn't agreed to anything, and I sure as hell hadn't planned any surprises. I wanted to march down there right then and confront her, but my maid of honor talked me down. "Let's just wait," she said. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe I misheard. But I couldn't shake the feeling. Something was wrong. The next morning, as I sat in the makeup chair getting ready, I kept thinking about what my maid of honor had said. Emile had been hovering around the venue all morning, checking on things, talking to vendors, acting like she was the one getting married. She was in an oddly good mood. Smug, even like she had a secret. I was about 30 minutes away from walking down the aisle when the officiant appeared in the doorway of the bridal suite. He looked uncomfortable. "I'm so sorry to bother you," he said, "but I need to check something." He held out a folded piece of paper. "Your mother-in-law gave this to me earlier. She said it was a last-minute update to your vows. She seemed very insistent that I use it, but I wanted to make sure you'd actually approve this." My heart was pounding as I took the paper. I unfolded it slowly, my hand shaking. At first, the words looked familiar. The opening lines were mine. But then they twisted into something I'd never written. "I promise to forever prioritize my husband's family, to always seek the guidance of the woman who raised him, to cherish her wisdom above all others. I vow to honor and respect her as the foundation of our marriage, to always put her needs first, and to never let anything come between the bond she shares with her son." I read it twice, then a third time. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. She had rewritten my vows to center herself, to make me publicly promise to put her first, to make me vow, in front of everyone we knew, that she would always be the priority in my marriage. "This isn't mine," I said quietly. The officiant nodded. "I didn't think so. That's why I wanted to check." I looked up at him, my vision blurring with rage. She assumed I wouldn't read these before the ceremony. She thought I'd just go along with it. "Do you want me to use your original vows?" he asked gently. I took a deep breath.
Yes, please.
"Use the ones I actually wrote." He nodded and left. I stood there for a long moment, holding the fake vows in my hand. My bridesmaids were staring at me. "What the hell was that?" one of them asked. I told them. I watched their faces shift from confusion to anger to disbelief. My maid of honor actually laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. "She's insane." Maybe. But she was also sitting in the front row right now, probably grinning, probably thinking she'd won. I folded the fake vows and tucked them into my pocket. Then I checked my reflection one more time, straightened my veil, and walked toward the chapel. This was my wedding, not hers. And I was going to make damn sure she knew it. The music started. My father took my arm, squeezed my hand, and led me down the aisle. I focused on my fiancé, waiting at the altar. He looked so happy, so unaware of the bomb his mother had just tried to drop. As I passed the front row, I saw Emile sitting there, practically glowing. She gave me a little nod like we were co-conspirators, like I was about to do exactly what she wanted. I kept my face neutral and kept walking. The ceremony began. The officiant spoke about love and partnership and commitment. My fiancé and I exchanged rings. Everything was perfect. And then we reached the vows. The officiant looked at me and nodded. It was my turn. I reached into my pocket. My fingers brushed against the crumpled paper Emile had written. I left it there. Instead, I pulled out my real vows, the ones I'd spent weeks writing, the ones that were actually about the man I was marrying. I took a deep breath and began to read. "I promise to stand beside you, to support you, to laugh with you and cry with you. I promise to be your partner, your best friend, your home. I promise to choose you every single day, to build a life with you that's full of love and respect and honesty. I promise to be the person you can always count on, no matter what life throws at us. I love you. I've always loved you. And I can't wait to spend the rest of my life proving that to you." There wasn't a single mention of his mother. Not one word about honoring her or seeking her guidance or putting her first. As I spoke, I watched Emile's face change. At first, she was still smiling. Then confusion flickered across her features. Her smile faltered. Her eyebrows drew together. And then realization hit. I wasn't reading her version. Her mouth opened slightly. Her hands clenched in her lap. I saw her shift in her seat, like she wanted to stand up, to interrupt, but she couldn't. Not without making a scene in the middle of the ceremony. My fiancé squeezed my hands, his eyes shining. He had no idea what had just happened. He just heard the vows I'd written for him. When I finished, the officiant turned to him. He pulled out his own vows and began to read. Beautiful, heartfelt words about partnership and love and building a future together. I barely heard them. I was too focused on Emile in my peripheral vision. She looked like she was about to explode. Her face had gone red. Her jaw was clenched. Her hands were gripping the fabric of her dress so tightly, I thought she might rip it. The officiant pronounced us husband and wife. My new husband kissed me. The guests erupted into applause. And I braced myself for what I knew was coming. As we walked back down the aisle together, hand in hand, I could feel Emile's glare burning into my back. She was furious, and she wasn't going to let this go. Sure enough, by the time we reached the reception hall, the tension was already building. Emile had been keeping her distance during photos, but I could see her pacing in the background, whispering to Ephile, her face twisted with barely contained rage. The reception started beautifully. The venue looked stunning, soft golden lighting, perfectly arranged tables, a dance floor that practically begged us to dance the night away. Guests were mingling, congratulating us, enjoying the food. My husband and I were floating on a cloud, soaking in every moment. But I kept catching glimpses of Emile. She was getting darker by the second. Every time someone complimented my vows, her expression soured. Every time someone told us how beautiful the ceremony was, she looked like she wanted to scream. It didn't take long for her to snap. I was standing near the cake table, talking with some friends, when I heard her voice slice through the air.
Sharp.
Angry. I turned and saw her cornering my husband near the bar. She had grabbed his arm and was pulling him aside, her face inches from his. I couldn't hear everything she was saying, but I caught enough. She was demanding to know what had happened, why I'd changed the vows at the last second, whether he'd known about it. Her voice was low but strained, like she was barely holding herself together. My husband, to his credit, stayed calm. He told her that the vows I'd spoken were the ones I'd always planned to say, that he'd never expected anything different. That didn't satisfy her. She started getting louder, demanding to know why I had lied to her, why I had promised to include her, and then humiliated her in front of everyone. That's when I'd had enough. I walked over, my voice steady but firm. I never promised you anything. You rewrote my vows behind my back and expected me to blindly read them. I was never going to make a vow to put you first when I was marrying your son. The room went quiet. Conversation slowed. Heads turned. The tension thickened like fog. Emile's face contorted with pure rage. You humiliated me, she shouted. In front of everyone. You disrespected me. I disrespected you? I shot back. You tried to hijack my wedding vows to make them about you. I just wanted to be included, she screamed. I just wanted to feel like I mattered. This day wasn't about you, I said quietly. It was never about you. Before she could respond, Ephile stepped in. He'd been standing off to the side, watching everything unfold, his face unreadable. But now he looked done. That's enough, he said sharply. You're embarrassing yourself. And you're embarrassing this family. Emile whipped around to face him. You always take their side. You never support me. Because you crossed a line, Ephile said. You tried to manipulate their wedding vows. That's not normal. That's not okay. If you respected me, she hissed, they would respect me too. Ephile shook his head and walked away. Just turned and left her standing there, shaking with fury. The guests were definitely watching now. Some were whispering. Some were awkwardly pretending not to listen. A few were staring in open disbelief. Emile stood there for a long moment, her chest heaving, her face bright red. And then, in a truly spectacular display of dramatics, she grabbed her purse and stormed toward the exit. I will not stand for this, she shouted. I will not be treated like this. The door slammed shut behind her. She was gone. For a moment, the room was silent. Then Ephile sighed, clapped his hands together and muttered, finally, now I can eat in peace. Laughter rippled through the room. The tension broke. And just like that, the party continued. My husband and I danced. We ate. We celebrated with people who actually loved and supported us. Emile might have tried to sabotage our wedding, but all she'd done was embarrass herself. And honestly, I had no regrets. The morning after the wedding, I woke up feeling lighter than I had in months. Despite Emile's meltdown, the night had been perfect. Once she left, the atmosphere had completely shifted. It was like her presence had been suffocating everyone, and suddenly we could all breathe again. I was halfway through my first cup of coffee when my phone started buzzing. Then my husband's phone. Then mine again. I finally checked. Emile had spent the entire night on social media, posting a long, dramatic rant about how she'd been publicly humiliated at her own son's wedding. How I had betrayed her trust. How I had intentionally excluded her from the vows even after promising to include her. She'd twisted the entire story, made it sound like she was the grieving mother of an ungrateful son and his evil daughter-in-law, painted herself as the victim who'd been cruelly pushed aside. And it was getting engagement. Family members who hadn't even attended the wedding were already picking sides. Some were defending her, outraged that her only son had abandoned her. Others were confused, asking what the hell she was talking about. And then there were the ones who'd actually been there, calling her out, saying she'd embarrassed herself. Some had even posted videos from the reception, showing Efile telling her she'd crossed a line. Emile was not handling that well. I was still processing everything when there was a loud knock at the door. I already knew who it was. My husband opened the door, and there she stood. Emile looked completely disheveled, makeup smudged, eyes red, like she'd been crying all night. But her expression wasn't sad. It was furious. She marched inside without an invitation, waving her phone around, demanding to know if we'd seen how we'd ruined her life. She was scrolling through her own self-created mess, yelling about betrayal and heartbreak. My husband tried to calm her down. You embarrassed yourself. Nobody asked you to rewrite her vows. She lost it. Started screaming that I'd poisoned him against her, that before I came along, she'd been the most important person in his life. I had to bite back a laugh. You're his mother, I said flatly. I'm his wife. The fact that you see those as competing roles is exactly why we're in this situation. She gasped like I'd physically struck her. Before she could launch into another round of theatrics, Efile arrived. He was clearly done. Told Emile to cut it out, that she was embarrassing herself again, and that if she expected him to back her up, she was sorely mistaken. Emile looked genuinely shocked. How can you take her side? You're not entitled to be the center of everything just because you're someone's mother, Efile said. Emile staggered back. Then she did what she always did when she didn't get her way, burst into tears. Sobbed about how nobody appreciated her. How she'd sacrificed so much.
Fiel Siged.
This is exactly why people don't want to deal with you. That set her off. She snapped that he was the real problem, that if he'd been a better husband, maybe her son wouldn't have abandoned her for some vindictive woman. My husband's voice rose for the first time. I'm done. Your obsession with being first in my life is not normal. If you can't accept that I'm married now, you're going to lose me entirely. The look on her face was almost comical. She genuinely hadn't expected him to stand up to her. She scoffed, wiped her eyes, and declared she wouldn't stand for this disrespect. Then she stormed out again. Efile muttered that he was going to have a peaceful afternoon now. My husband and I just stood there, exhausted. We'd won. But somehow it didn't even feel like a victory. For a few days, everything was quiet.
Too quiet.
I knew better than to think she'd given up. Then my husband got a call from his aunt. Apparently, Emile had gone on a full campaign to gather support. She'd called nearly every relative, sobbing about betrayal, about how excited she'd been to be part of our vows, about how I'd tricked her at the last second just to humiliate her. Her version made it sound like she'd been standing at the altar ready to take vows herself, only for me to cruelly rip them away. And some relatives were buying it. A few had taken to social media with passive-aggressive posts about how family should come first. But then she took it further. She reached out to my parents. I got a message from my mom asking if everything was okay because Emile had just called, sounding devastated. My mother, thankfully, knew exactly what Emile was like. When I called her, she told me Emile had gone on a 20-minute sob story, begging my mom to talk to me, saying I was acting out of spite. My mom had let her talk. Then she'd asked a simple question. How exactly has she cut you out of your son's life? Emile had sputtered, thrown off. She'd expected my mom to take her side without question. My mom shut her down, told her she'd watched me try to include her over and over, only to be met with constant overstepping. Told her that a mother's role changes when her child gets married. That forcing herself into our vows wasn't just inappropriate, it was unhinged. Emile had hung up on her. The very next day, Emile sent out a mass text to the entire extended family. A full letter detailing how she'd been shunned, how I'd manipulated her son, how all she'd wanted was to feel included. She claimed I was the one who'd changed the vows at the last second, making her look like a fool. She was rewriting history in real time. The family group chat exploded. Some saw right through it. Others were confused or siding with MIL. My husband was done. He responded in the group chat, laying out exactly what happened. That MIL had rewritten my vows behind my back, attempted to swap them at the altar, then threw a tantrum when I didn't go along with it. He ended with a note. If anyone believed he should have allowed his mother to hijack his wedding vows just to soothe her ego, they could remove themselves from our lives too. That shut a lot of people up. But MIL doubled down, responded immediately, ranting about heartbreak, about public shaming, about abandonment. My husband read her message, said he was comfortable with it, then blocked her. Just like that, MIL lost the access she'd weaponized for years. I knew it wouldn't stop her completely. She'd find other ways to stir up drama. But at least for now, she no longer had direct access to our lives. With the wedding chaos behind us, my husband and I left for our honeymoon. After everything, there was no way we were letting her ruin what was supposed to be our time. The first few days were pure bliss. No calls.
No guilt-tripping texts. No meal-induced headaches.
Just peace. But I knew she had to be losing her mind back home, stewing in her own misery. So, naturally, I decided to make it worse. Every time we took a beautiful honeymoon picture, lounging on the beach, enjoying a luxurious dinner, sipping cocktails, I would unblock MIL just long enough to send her the photo. Then I'd immediately block her again before she could respond. It was petty. It was immature.
But oh, it was so satisfying.
My husband thought it was hilarious. He even started coming up with captions. Prioritizing my real family first. Oops, looks like I'm busy enjoying my honeymoon instead of pledging my life to a certain someone. When FIL found out, he nearly choked from laughing. He told my husband I was his new favorite person and that MIL was having an absolute meltdown every time a notification popped up, only to be blocked again before she could fire off one of her dramatic monologues. Apparently, she was calling FIL screaming about how I was tormenting her on purpose. She wasn't wrong, but at least this time, she was right about something. By the time we got back from the honeymoon, MIL had gone completely silent. No calls.
No texts.
No social media posts. At first, I thought maybe she'd finally given up. Maybe she'd realized how insane she'd been acting and decided to back off. I should have known better. About a week after we returned, FIL called. He sounded tired. I need to tell you something, he said. Your MIL is planning something. My stomach dropped. What do you mean? She's been talking to a lawyer, he said. She wants to sue you for emotional distress. Says you intentionally humiliated her at the wedding and then tormented her during your honeymoon. I stared at my phone. She's suing me?
She's trying, FIL said.
The lawyer told her she doesn't have a case, but she's convinced she does. She thinks if she can prove you acted maliciously, she can get some kind of settlement. I felt a weird mix of rage and disbelief. She's lost her mind. Yeah, FIL said quietly. I know. When I told my husband, he just laughed. A cold, bitter sound. Let her try. We waited. Days turned into weeks. MIL never followed through with the lawsuit, probably because every lawyer she talked to told her the same thing. She had no case. But she didn't give up entirely. Instead, she shifted tactics. Started sending letters. Long, handwritten letters about how hurt she was, how betrayed she felt, how all she'd ever wanted was to be close to her son. We didn't respond. Not once. Months passed. The letters kept coming. Then they slowed. Then they stopped. The last I heard, MIL was telling people we'd cut her off for no reason, that she'd done nothing wrong, and we were just cruel, heartless people who didn't value family. Some relatives believed her. Most didn't. My husband and I, we're thriving. We bought a house. We're building a life together. A life that's ours, not hers. Some mornings, I have coffee on the deck and think about that wedding day. About the look on MIL's face when she realized I wasn't reading her version of the vows. About the sound of the door slamming when she stormed out of the reception. I don't feel guilty. I don't feel bad. I just feel free. And I never once regretted standing up to her.
Alright, I'm out, but the next story is already on the way.